Well, it must be the end of quarter one because I have received more pre-orders in the last 2 weeks than maybe I ever have in any 3-month period. As you can tell by the content on the channel right now, it just looks like I'm just like stacking up games and I'm buying wildly. But all of these were pretty much pre-ordered more than a year ago, with the exception of this one, which just showed up from Draco Ideas, Spanish publisher. This is Onus, and this is the complete Onus set. There's a bunch of boxes under here. There's a bunch of bonus stuff. I'm very, very excited. I actually saw this for the first time in Stuka Joe's coverage of BiotaCon, and it looked really interesting. Sort of the type of game that really gets me like fascinated, because it's essentially a minis game but with cards, and I'll show you how that works. But it's all set in the Ancients period. And so there's no painting, there's no model assembling, there's none of that stuff. It's just all unboxed, ready to go and play. It doesn't look too complicated. It looks really fun. There's a whole campaign system to this. And this is not widely available in the US, as far as I know. I picked it up as a late backer on their crowdfunding campaign, and I believe you can still do that. I believe they reprinted the original and they just had the new one come out, and so you can get all of this or some form mixture of this by being a late pledge, I believe, through their crowdfunding site, which I will try and leave in the description if I can remember. But I wanted to show you this because it's a really fascinating game system. It looks really cool, and just there's a metric ton of stuff here, right? So Onus, let's start there. A lot of the bonus stuff here on the top was stuff that came with the pledge. So these are all tuck boxes. And there's a tuck box for every basically faction. So we've got the Romans, all of these are barbarians. We've got some mercenaries here, and I'll show you how that works. But basically a really nice way to store all the components for a particular faction, because essentially components are cards in this game. And here's Scipio Africanus, who is the main Roman leader, I guess you would say, in the Roman Republic. So this is... these games cover a wide variety of time, but the main one here is going to be Rome and the Punic War in one of these boxes, so that's why you've got that there. So those are the tuck boxes. We got a set of custom dice. Not sure exactly how you're going to use these, but there's 4 of each. There's 4 red, 4 black, 4 green, 4 blue in here that have sort of the Onus laurel wreath and Roman numerals. I would guess that these would replace the normal D6s that come in the boxes, which is a pretty nice touch. So we'll check that out. This is a dice tower that you can assemble and then roll your dice in, and it's got like a siege, or it looks like a castle motif to it. So there's like, the artwork is really nice. The artwork in general in this game system is really nice. But there's like a Cairo ballista there in the archway and stairway and a front gate. I'll put that together and show you what it looks like before the video's over. These were coasters. So I guess if you're gonna have some friends over, 12 exclusive coasters featuring the generals of Onus, Trajanus, which is, I guess, is something that Draco Ideas does quite a bit. This is my first game owned by Draco Ideas, by the way. They have a really interesting portfolio, and they publish a bunch of games in Spain from other publishers, DVG, and some Nuts titles, and yeah. But anyways, there's 4 coasters. They're each double-sided. We've got the Parthians and the Romans on this one, and then we've got the Sarmatians and the Dacians on this one, and then we have got the Celts and the Germanic peoples on this one. So kind of a fun little addition, right? Like if you have a bunch of friends over, you can play these games more than 2 players. So if you have friends over and you're drinking, use some appropriate coasters. I think that's a fun little throw in. This, I'm not sure, maybe like an expansion pack or a bonus pack for Onus Trajanus. Okay, I'm gonna mess that up. Trajanus. So there's some units here, and this is a good first look at what sort of the unit cards look like. So here's the Roman Varangian Guard. So you'll notice here they've got stats. They've got the amount, I think this is army points. So this is, again, like a minis game. You're going to use army points to determine what your force pool is going to be. And then I really love the art. It's like it kind of reminds me of Heroes of Normandy. It's like you're looking down from a bird's eye view on all of the legions formed up in rows. So it's going to look really neat on the table in a number of ways, and I'll show you that. We've got the Onus Terrain and Fortresses expansion. So this is really cool. We'll get into that in a second, but this adds a whole bunch of terrain pieces that you can add to your game for some of the various scenarios. And then we've got the 2 games. So we've got Onus Trajanus, which is the new one. Comes in a big 3-inch box, or about 3 inches. And you can see here 1 to 4 players. This is the English version. Plays in about 30 minutes, ages 12 plus. Not a complicated game system, but there's a ton of content in here that I'm really excited about. So here we can see some of the cards. We've got the leaders. Here's some Indian elephants, which is cool. So this is this is going to be sort of Rome versus some of their enemies. So with Onus Trajanus, you will fight Trajan's Dacian Wars, the Parthian campaign, or the rebellion of the Brigantes. Which is really cool. So it's like enjoy epic battles between the main armies at the time of Trajan and Hadrian, back when the Roman Empire reached its maximum extension. So I guess we'd be talking about, what was that, 1st century, 2nd century Rome, I guess. And you can see all the factions that come in this box. We've got the Romans, the Celts, the Dacians, the Germanic peoples, Parthia, Sarmatia. Got some Roman auxiliaries, some mercenaries. And then you'll notice here that there is a playmat. This does not come with the game, but it did come with the pledge that I did. And I'm going to spread this out and unbox it on this, but it's a really nice terrain, like neoprene terrain mat, that is the size you would need to play the game. And you lay the cards out on it. So yeah, so let's take a look. Let me spread out the playmat, and then we'll open the box, and I'll show you kind of what you get in here. Okay, so here we have the playmat, Onus Trajanus. I pulled out some of the custom dice. Here's the dice tower. I love the little like touches of art on the dice tower, like the little guys like firing out the window, like the battle here on the walls, coming down the stairs. It's a pretty cute. The game overall is pretty cute for what it is. Let's roll some dice in it, shall we? Let's see what it's like. Boom, a 4 to 3. Don't know if that's good, but there you go. All right, Onus Trajanus. Let's get this open. I'm gonna need to do this two-handed, maybe. Definitely needed to do it two-handed. Okay, so first of all, we've got the campaign book, and this is a massive book. It's actually perfect bound, as you can see, that square binding there. If I can get it to focus. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, so it's perfect bound, square binding. And this is going to be all of the scenarios, essentially. But what's cool is that you can link them together into the historical campaign. So you can see here, we've got the campaign rules. How do you play in campaign mode? Creating the campaign army, campaign record sheet. So you're going to assemble a force pool of units at the beginning of the campaign. You're going to take them through all of these potential scenarios. But what's neat, if we go through here, so here's the introduction of the different factions. Here's all the components, how you play with the campaign rules. There's a campaign sheet, a record sheet that you're going to use, what battle you choose, unit selection after the battle. So there's like effects based on who wins and who doesn't, victory points. And what's neat, and here's the campaign log, to keep a record of what's going on. So here's Trajan's, there's a couple campaigns. So here's Trajan's first Dacian War. So it talks about the way that Trajan campaigned through Dacia, where all the battles occurred, and in what order, which is pretty cool. And it looks like there might be maybe some splitting here. So yeah, so Trajan's first Dacian War is comprised by several different battles, varying from 5 in the case of Dacia obtaining victory in the first 5 campaign battles, to a maximum of 10 in the case that there is no clear winner. So it's actually really cool. You can depending on how the games go, you may or may not make it through all of these battles, which is neat. And so here's the second battle of Tapai from 101 AD. And this would be an example of what the battle would look like. So you'd be playing on this mat, you would assemble your units, your cards, and then you would face off against each other and using the rules on how to move. Here's a historical overview, very commands and colors-ish. And it tells you here, so for example, for each of these battles, tells you how many points your army is going to be, and then if there's any special units, what general you're going to use, and what units you're not allowed to use for historical purposes. Special rules, victory conditions, and then replacement, which looks to be a campaign rule. And then, you just keep going. And so you would play through. Here's the siege of Novia Dunum. And what I like about this system, what really actually attracted me, is that it's not just field battles. There's also sieges. So you can see here that there's like a fortress. You've got the units lined up around there. This is not going to be super heavyweight, but a minis style game in Ancients period is like totally my jam. First Battle of Nicopolis, Second Battle of Nicopolis. So this is all Trajan's Dacian campaign. The Siege of Fetele Albe. So you can see here we've got some terrain. We'll talk about the terrain in a second. And then you would go through, and then so there's different campaigns in this booklet. So let me turn the page properly here to get you. So this is the end of the Dacian campaign. Then we go to Trajan's second Dacian War. So this is a separate campaign that you can play through with a series of battles that will take you against the Sarmatians, take you against the Dacians again. So there's just a ton of content in here that is really cool. And here on the back it gives you all the campaigns. So here's Trajan's Parthian War against the Parthians, and then the Brigantian Uprising in Britannia. So a nice mix of Imperial Roman battles and campaigns, and it's really neat that you're able to play them all through sort of chronologically and historically with different outcomes. So this is the campaign book. That's going to be key to your campaign experience. Then we've got the rule book here. This is on a really nice stock. The cover page is actually thicker than the pages. It's 51. Wow, it's 51 pages. But it looks like there's a glossary in the back, so let's take a look here. So on the back, we've got a modifier summary, so you're basically a player aid, essentially. And then we've got an alphabetic index, important rules so that you don't forget. And it looks like, wow, it looks like this is actually a 50-page rule book, 47 pages. Info about orders and events, maybe not. Modifiers. I mean, the text is fairly large. You can see that there's a lot of illustrations. There's a lot of white space. So I would say that maybe this is probably comparable to like a 24-page rule book if we're talking about the GMT case style. Special formations, end of turn, flight phase. So, you know, it's going to capture ancient warfare in a way that's pretty interesting. And obviously, you're going to want to understand the angles of the units, right? So how to calculate distance, what a flank versus front or rear is going to be. It is a minis game, so there's no hexes, obviously. Line of sight, how you calculate that. And you can see that it's actually fairly generously spaced, and there's a lot of examples. So even though it is 50 pages, 46 pages or whatever it was, it is not going to be, it's not going to read like that. There's lots of stuff in here. Free rotation, extending or reducing a formation, which is kind of interesting. So you can extend your formations, make the line longer. I mean, there's a fair bit of chrome for the Ancients period and how armies are managed at the tactical level here, which is pretty nice. Again, one of the things that really attracted me to it. So here's the turn sequence, the activation phase, the movement phase, ranged attack, skirmishers, melee, flight, end of turn, how you set up a battle, creating the armies, victory conditions, action cards. Okay, so there's a whole action card system in this game, generals and what they do. Here's an introduction to the actual game itself and the table of contents. So this is your rule book, really nicely illustrated. Again, I love the art here. And then we've got a solo mode rule book, and this is how you can play the game solo. So, I mean, again, the value here is impressive, right? You've got a whole campaign system. You can play just one-off scenarios. You've got the ability to play solo, if that's your jam, if you're looking for a mini-style game to play solo. And here's how you would do that, which looks pretty robust. There's a lot of charts, deployment of the AI general, the turn sequence, how the AI behaves. I mean, clearly a lot of thought has gone into this game system. It looks really good. We've got counters. So here, it looks like we've got a sheet of counters that are duplicated, so 2 counters of the same. And these are likely, each player is probably going to get some number of these. So we've got the different faction icons here, not sure what those would be used for. These look like the extension markers for the units, to if you want to like extend their line. We've got various, looks like status markers here for various effects. We've got some Roman numerals, some modifier tokens, and then we've got the movement template. So I'll pop this one out. So here's the Roman movement template. So based on what unit you're using, like any good minis game, you're going to be able to measure, you're going to measure how far in distance those units can move, right? So it might be that, you know, maybe they only move, a land unit only moves 1, so you'd line this up with the card, and then they would move that far. And so you've got one of these for each of the various factions. You've got Roman and Celtic and Dacian and Sarmatian and Germanic. So yeah, and it's really nice quality token punch board. And then we've got an insert for the dice. We got some baggies, places where you can store all of your components, which is really nice, and just a ton of cards, right? So we're talking about this being a card-based game. Here's some of the action cards. Let's take a look at those. So they're dual use, it appears. We've got Cavalry Advance and Battle Roar, and I'm going to be interested to see how these are used in the game. Again, very Commands and Colors-esque. So for example, here you can activate all mounted units if you play that Cavalry Advance card. And so these are half-size cards. And then we've got the unit cards, and here we have some Dacian archers. And I'll turn this over, but I love the artwork on the units. They're all sort of unique, somewhat unique poses and colors and different things they got going on. It's really cool. Love that. Curious what the stats are going to be. It looks like we've got ranged combat, melee, defense. I wonder if there's a hit check. It looks like maybe hit points, rally, and movement value. Let me open some of these and show them to you. Okay, so here we have some of the units on the field as they would be deployed in the game. So here we can see some siege weaponry, some ballistae. These are going to these cards here, I just happened to open the pack that had the mercenary units, the neutral units, which is the skull icon. Looks like 170 army points. Here is their stat line, what their special abilities might be. There are some player aid cards, so there's 6 of these in the game. You've got the turn sequence, what some of the tokens are going to do, what some of the icons are going to do. And then here we've got unit abilities all on the back. So for example, the onagers here, The onagers unit has that symbol, and that means they're professionals. They re-roll their ones, which is kind of interesting. What else do we got? We got some Numidian cavalry over here. I love it. Mid spear throw, which is kind of neat. They've got some abilities as well. They have got the ability to, let's flip this over. They've got javelins. So there's an event. If you have the javelin symbol, it looks like you can use the javelin event with them, which is kind of neat. And then they've also got, they are also professionals. And then they've got that symbol there, which is going to mean, maybe it's on this side, that they are skirmishers, that symbol there. So different abilities, probably different action cards are going to key those things. Numidian cavalry were very effective for Hannibal. Here's an example of a leader, Sauromates the First. It looks like he's going to add bonuses based on which units he might be around or stacked with. Don't know what the 10% is. Here's his special ability. You may recruit units of the Sarmatian army as if they were mercenaries, paying their cost and points as usual. So he can command Sarmatians and mercenary units. And there's just a ton of these, right? Like here's more of the neutral units. Here's Dacian archers. These are going to be probably Dacians in there. We've got another deck here that's going to be the cohort Bretonium. So this is going to be a Roman legion, it looks like. They've got some interesting symbols. Let's see. They have got the javelins, so they would obviously throw their pilum. Their pila. They're also skirmishers, it looks like, and they've also got this. I'm not sure what symbol that is. I don't know what that is. The little, it looks like 3 trees. Curious. Anyways, we'll figure it out as we learn to play. But let me, I'll pull out a couple more units so you can check out what we're looking at. Okay, so here's some more units facing off against each other. Just an example to show you some of that and some of the command cards. We've got the Sogdian Hill people formed up in lines for battle there. Love the artwork. We've got some Contarii, some Roman cavalry facing off against them. Here we've got some actual Roman legionaries with the Centurion. Looks like there. Love it. It looks so cool. And then some Eastern Spearmen. So these are Parthian units here. Look, no range, right? And then here's some examples of some of the command cards. We've got like skirmish. You can activate 1 unit, and actually it actually keys some symbols here, so that might make it easier to match up to different unit abilities that exist, right? These Sogdian Hill people are kind of interesting. They not only do they have javelins, but they also have the ability to lunge, so they get +1 attack against infantry, and they also are athletes, so they get extra movement when they charge, which is kind of cool. This must be a terrain thing, which is kind of interesting. Like the legionaries have the forest, these have the mountains. I'm curious what that means. So skirmish, you can activate a unit, or battle roar, the enemy makes a morale check with -1. I assume that's morale after combat. So it looks like, based on looking at these, it looks like we've got an activation top half, so you use the card to activate. So here you can activate as many units as your general's leadership value, kind of like commands and colors, or you can steal 1 random enemy card from your enemy. You may play it. And then we've got like combat-oriented effects on the bottom. So bloodbath, both sides get like a bonus in melee or combined attack. You can add 2 units against a single unit potentially. Battle roar, yeah, makes it morale check. So, and there's just a ton, right? Like a ton of content and cards here. And this is just one of the boxes, by the way. I'm going to open the other ones to show you, but yeah, we've got the Parthians here. We've got the Brigantes. We've got the Romans, and like there's just so many units, right? I mean, there's duplicates of units as well, but there's just a lot of options for how you want to build your force, which is really cool. I'm very excited about playing this, as you can tell. Here are all of the mercenary units. It's a big stack of neutral mercenary units, siege weaponry. And then the action deck is also massive, right? So there's looks like a lot of replayability and variety in here. I'm very excited to check this out. Let me sort of clean this up a little bit and then take you through the other boxes very briefly, just to show you what's in there. Okay, so this is what is called Onus Pack, and I believe what this is a compilation of all the previous Onus releases before Trajanus into one box. And if we flip this over, it tells us that we have got about Hannibal crossing the Alps with thousands of soldiers, Leonidas defending Thermopylae. So I believe Onus as a series was released in a sort of series of historically specific modules. So for example, there was a Rome versus Carthage Punic Wars module. There was a Greco-Persian Wars, which would have been obviously Thermopylae, Spartans and Athens. There would have been the rise of Macedonia, Alexander the Great, the Macedonian Wars, the Greek Wars, the Gladiator Wars. So you can see that some of the factions that come in this box, this predates Imperial Rome. We're talking about Republican era Punic Wars, obviously Carthage, Athens, Sparta, Persia, Macedonia, the general Greeks, city-states, and more neutral mercenaries. So all of that, I believe these were released separately, and I think that this was then recollated into this what's called Onus Pack. So that's what's in here. So we've got sort of a variety of Greek and Roman Republican campaigns and battles. I haven't opened this yet, so let's take a look. There we go. Okay. So, Onus campaign book. This one feels even beefier than the one that came in Trajanus. We have got 7 full campaigns. Second Punic Wars. We've got the Second Punic Wars in Spain. We've got the Persian Wars, which includes Marathon, Thermopylae, Mycale, Plataea. We've got the Greek Wars, which I guess that would be what we call the Peloponnesian Wars. We've got the Rise of Macedon. So Chaeronea, Granicus River, Issus, Gaugamela, Hydaspes, the Macedonian Wars, Battle of Athens, Cynocephaly, Pydna, Callinicus, and then the Gladiator War. So this would be Spartacus, it looks like, on the Italian peninsula. This one, obviously, even more content. Battle of Issus. And incidentally, you see that a lot of these have sort of a desert terrain behind them. When you pre-ordered, you got your choice, with the pledge that I made anyways, the late pledge, you get your choice of 2 of the same battle mats, and unfortunately you couldn't mix and match. So they do have like a winter battle mat. I think they had a desert battle mat that would have been for this, and then there's the grass one, which would be for Trajanus, obviously. It would have been nice to have sort of the sandy desert terrain Mantinea here. It would have been nice to have sort of the desert terrain playmat, but it's okay. I may be able to buy those separately if I really wanted to. Here you can see, actually, it looks like it tells you what units in the setups for this particular game, tells you what specific units are going to be set up for the particular scenarios. This is an Athens versus Sparta, Sphacteria. And so here's the campaign page. Here's the Battle of Plataea. Looks really fun. You know, not a simulation, but certainly as a minis game, it's pretty cool. I have to look into getting the desert terrain. So there's the campaign book. We've got the same rule book as in the other box. We've got the same solo mode rules as in the other box, and it looks like we have all the same markers, save for the faction movement templates here. And then obviously we've got the cards, Numidian cavalry again, some player aids. Here we've got, what do we got? We've got some hoplites. This guy appears to be screaming at the air, like you would expect. These would be Athenian hoplites. I like that the shields have different crests on them. That's cool. We've got Meliphares Guard. These look like Persians. And then, of course, we've got the deck of action cards and some dice. So, again, very similar. I'm not going to go through all of these like I did with the other one. You kind of get the idea by now. But what I do want to show you is the terrain pack and how that is integrates into these games. Okay, so the last thing that came with this package of stuff is the Onus Terrain and Fortresses expansion, and this is really cool. So there's a half-size rule book in here, some baggies, and then I want to show you how this works. But basically, rules about how to integrate the terrain into the various games in the Onus series. So we've got some markers. We've got this big pack, which I'll show you. We've got a counter sheet here, which has things like, it looks like battering rams, it looks like maybe some sort of fire or destruction, some ladders. We've got these markers, which I don't know what they do. But it talks here. So we got climbing and climbed markers, fire markers, ram markers, unit markers. So this is, I guess, to easily identify units occupying enclosed structures, just like watchtowers and so forth. So ranged attack from different height, melee attacks from different heights, difficult movement, different types of terrain, overlapping, all of that stuff. But you can see here mountains and lakes, all the different types of fjords, rivers, hills, how that's going to affect the combat, which is pretty cool, choke points. The unit markers representing certain situation in which units are placed in confined spaces, such as towers or watchtowers. They are twin markers, one to be placed on the structure and the other on the unit's card. So you take the unit off the mat, put that there to show you where it is. We've got villages, fortresses, walls, towers, lateral attack, defeating a defender, walls with a gate. That's cool. Watchtowers. There's a lot of like situational rules about what can happen. Trenches and barricades, assaults and damaging structures, artillery. There's actually quite a bit here. We're at page 25. Damaging and setting structures on fire, rams and elephants. Scenarios with fortresses. The point value, talking about if you're going to use fortresses. So here's like an example of how far away the armies have to start. Victory conditions. Fortress design, so how you can set up and design your own fortresses. And that's what I want to get to now. Here's a little summary of modifiers about the different types of terrain. But that's what I want to get to now, is all of this, because it's really cool. Okay, so here's an example of just some of the terrain pieces that come in the terrain expansion. Here we've got like a little village or a compound of some kind, some farmers. I love the artwork. This woman getting water from the well, the cows and the chickens. It's really adorable. But so what's cool about these is that they're transparent, right? They're like see-through plastic, so they take on the color of whatever terrain they're placed on to make it look really natural. Here we've got like a little mesa, a little rise, like elevated ground hill. We've got caltrops. We've got things that this appears to be some sort of trench or ditch, for example. Here's just like debris, scattered debris from like a battle or whatever. If you wanted a lake or a pond in your scenario, you could have that. You can build rivers out. So similar to like commands and colors, I keep saying that, but like without having to be restricted by the hexes. So here you might have a river, and then you might say, well, I really want a bridge crossing that river. And you just put that on top, and there you go. Now you've got a river that's got a bridge going across it. And it's so cool how they've done this. And so that you keep the terrain color underneath these terrain features. And there's just a ton, right? So like this thing comes with like so many sheets. Here you've got different watchtower pieces, more river pieces. You've got like palisades and fortified works, more caltrops there. What else? More like forests. You got forest here. You got rivers with islands on them. You've got these rooms, like more like fortified like tower rooms. More rivers. Got this like craggy like quarry pit thing. More trenches. You've got the walls, like fortified walls here of stone, and you can make kind of your own custom designs for how that looks. Here's some more bridges, some more fortified walls. I like this piece here. It's like represents like because remember, you're looking down, these like battlements, right? So you're like fortified space, you're like looking down on like a wall section. This stack is absolutely massive. More sort of like elevated or elevated ground to fight over. We've got what looks to be a forest, like a thicker forest terrain that you can make. Here's one with like a pond in the middle. What else we got in here? There's another one. Here's like a lake with an island. I mean, just the options are pretty endless here. It is very cool. I can't wait to explore this system and see just kind of like what you can create and how you can reflect some of the scenario setups with these pieces. But really just a lot of modular like gameplay here with all the cards and all the factions and all the campaign scenarios. It just looks great. I had to back it because it just looks like a really well thought out package. I can't wait to learn it. Might try and play it this weekend. But there you go. That's Onus. That is the Onus Pack, the new Onus Trajanus and the Onus Terrain and Fortresses set. And we're going to do some exploring here. Some minis gaming without minis.